Daring Greatly is a self-help book written by Brené Brown. The book focuses on vulnerability and how embracing vulnerability can lead to a more authentic and fulfilling life. Brown believes that vulnerability is the key to human connection and that people must be willing to take risks and be vulnerable in order to truly connect with others. The book explores the concept of shame and how it can hold people back from living their best life. Brown argues that shame is often rooted in fear and that people must learn to be vulnerable in order to overcome shame and live a more authentic life. Throughout the book, Brown provides practical advice on how to embrace vulnerability, including strategies for dealing with shame, techniques for cultivating courage, and tips for building stronger relationships with others. Daring Greatly has been praised for its insightful approach to vulnerability and its emphasis on the importance of living authentically. The book has been a New York Times bestseller and has been widely acclaimed by both readers and critics alike. Here are the key ideas from the book. 1. Vulnerability is the key to human connection and meaningful relationships. Daring Greatly, Brené Brown argues that vulnerability is essential for building meaningful relationships and making genuine connections with others. When we are vulnerable, we are able to share our true selves with others, including our fears, doubts, and insecurities. This allows others to see and accept us for who we really are, which can create a sense of closeness and intimacy. On the other hand, when we are closed off and afraid to be vulnerable, we may struggle to build authentic relationships with others. We may feel like we are constantly wearing a mask or trying to be someone we're not in order to protect ourselves from rejection or judgment. This can make it difficult to form deep and meaningful connections with others. Overall, Brown argues that by embracing vulnerability and being willing to take risks in our relationships, we can create deeper and more fulfilling connections with others, leading to greater happiness, well-being, and overall life satisfaction. 2. Shame is a pervasive and powerful emotion that can hold us back from being vulnerable and authentic. Daring Greatly, Brené Brown argues that shame is a powerful emotion that can hold us back from being vulnerable and authentic in our relationships and in life in general. Shame is the feeling that we are inherently flawed, defective, or unworthy of love and belonging. Shame can arise from a variety of experiences, including childhood experiences, traumatic events, and societal expectations and pressures. When we feel shame, we may become disconnected from ourselves and others, and we may feel like we need to hide our true selves in order to avoid being rejected or judged. According to Brown, shame can be particularly damaging because it often leads us to believe that we are alone in our struggles and that no one else could possibly understand or relate to us. This can make it difficult for us to reach out for help and support when we need it most. However, Brown also emphasizes that shame can be overcome through the practice of vulnerability and shame resilience. By recognizing and acknowledging our shame, reaching out for support, and telling our stories to trusted others, we can begin to break free from shame's hold and live more authentic and fulfilling lives. 3. Vulnerability requires courage and is not weakness. Daring Greatly, Brené Brown emphasizes that vulnerability requires courage and is not weakness. She argues that vulnerability involves being willing to take risks, to put ourselves out there, and to be seen for who we really are. Many people associate vulnerability with weakness because it can be uncomfortable or even painful to expose our true selves to others. However, Brown believes that vulnerability is actually a sign of strength and courage. It takes courage to be honest about our feelings, to ask for help when we need it, and to take risks in our relationships and other areas of our lives. Furthermore, Brown argues that vulnerability is essential for growth, creativity, and innovation. When we are willing to take risks and be vulnerable, we open ourselves up to new experiences and perspectives, which can help us learn and grow. Overall, Brown encourages us to embrace vulnerability as a sign of strength and courage, and to see it as a necessary component of living a wholehearted and authentic life. 4. Living a wholehearted life involves embracing vulnerability and being willing to take risks. Daring Greatly, Brené Brown argues that living a wholehearted life involves embracing vulnerability and being willing to take risks. Brown believes that we can't fully experience joy, love, and connection without also being willing to experience vulnerability and the uncertainty that comes with it. living a wholehearted life means embracing all aspects of ourselves, including our imperfections, and being willing to take risks in order to live authentically and pursue our dreams. It also means being open to connection and intimacy with others, even if it means risking rejection or disappointment. According to Brown, the practice of wholehearted living involves cultivating a number of specific qualities, such as courage, compassion, connection, and gratitude. It also involves letting go of perfectionism and embracing vulnerability as a necessary component of growth and transformation. Overall, Brown encourages us to live wholeheartedly by embracing vulnerability in taking risks, cultivating positive qualities and relationships, and living in a way that is authentic and true to ourselves. 5. Cultivating empathy and compassion is essential for connecting with others and practicing vulnerability. Daring greatly, Brené Brown emphasizes the importance of cultivating empathy and compassion as essential qualities for connecting with others and practicing vulnerability. Empathy involves understanding and feeling the emotions of others, while compassion involves a desire to alleviate the suffering of others. Brown argues that cultivating empathy and compassion is key to building strong and meaningful relationships because it allows us to connect with others on a deeper level and to truly understand their perspectives and experiences. It also allows us to be more vulnerable with others because we feel a sense of safety and acceptance in their presence. Furthermore, Brown suggests that practicing empathy and compassion towards ourselves is also essential for living a wholehearted life. When we are able to be kind and understanding towards ourselves, we are more likely to be able to extend that same kindness and understanding to others. Overall, Brown encourages us to cultivate empathy and compassion as essential qualities for connecting with others and practicing vulnerability, and as key components of living a wholehearted life. 6. Perfectionism is a form of armor that we use to protect ourselves from vulnerability. Daring greatly, Brené Brown argues that perfectionism is a form of armor that we use to protect ourselves from vulnerability. Perfectionism involves setting impossibly high standards for ourselves and feeling like we need to be perfect in order to be accepted or loved. Brown suggests that perfectionism is often rooted in shame and fear of vulnerability. We may feel like if we show any flaws or imperfections, we will be judged or rejected by others. So, we try to hide our true selves behind a facade of perfectionism. However, Brown believes that perfectionism is ultimately counterproductive because it prevents us from being vulnerable and authentic with ourselves and others. It can also lead to feelings of shame, anxiety, and self-doubt, and can interfere with our ability to connect with others and pursue our goals. Instead, Brown suggests that we need to embrace our imperfections and be willing to take risks and make mistakes in order to grow and learn. We need to let go of the unrealistic standards of perfectionism and embrace the messy, imperfect, and sometimes uncomfortable aspects of life and relationships. Overall, Brown encourages us to recognize perfectionism as a form of armor that we use to protect ourselves from vulnerability, and to let go of it in order to live more authentically and wholeheartedly. 7. Vulnerability can lead to greater creativity, innovation, and success in life. Daring greatly, Brené Brown argues that vulnerability can lead to greater creativity, innovation, and success in life. She suggests that when we are willing to take risks and be vulnerable, we open ourselves up to new experiences and perspectives, which can help us learn and grow. Brown suggests that vulnerability is essential for creativity and innovation because it allows us to be open to new ideas and perspectives. When we are willing to take risks and be vulnerable, we are more likely to think outside the box and come up with new and innovative solutions to problems. Furthermore, Brown argues that vulnerability can also lead to greater success in life. When we are willing to take risks and put ourselves out there, we are more likely to achieve our goals and realize our dreams. We are also more likely to connect with others and build strong and meaningful relationships, which can provide us with support and opportunities for growth and success. Overall, Brown encourages us to embrace vulnerability as a key component of living a wholehearted and authentic life, and to recognize the ways in which it can lead to greater creativity, innovation, and success. 8. Shame resilience involves recognizing shame, reaching out for support, and telling our stories to trusted others. Daring greatly, Brené Brown emphasizes the importance of shame resilience, which involves recognizing shame, reaching out for support, and telling our stories to trusted others. According to Brown, shame is a universal human experience that can be incredibly painful and isolating. It can lead to feelings of worthlessness, self-doubt, and disconnection from others. However, Brown argues that shame resilience is possible, and that we can learn to recognize shame and overcome its negative effects. The first step in building shame resilience is to recognize shame when it arises. This involves being able to identify the physical and emotional signs of shame, such as a racing heart, sweating, or a feeling of overwhelm or inadequacy. By recognizing these signs, we can begin to understand our own shame triggers and patterns. The second step in building shame resilience is to reach out for support from trusted others. This involves finding people who are willing to listen without judgment, and who can provide us with empathy and understanding. By sharing our experiences of shame with others, we can begin to feel less alone and more connected to the people around us. Finally, Brown suggests that telling our stories to trusted others is a key component of building shame resilience. This involves sharing our experiences of shame with others in a way that is honest, vulnerable, and authentic. By telling our stories, we can begin to transform shame into empathy and connection, and we can reclaim our sense of worthiness and belonging. Overall, Brown encourages us to build shame resilience by recognizing shame, reaching out for support, and telling our stories to trusted others. By doing so, we can begin to overcome the negative effects of shame and live more wholeheartedly and authentically. 9. Learning to set boundaries is an important aspect of vulnerability and self-care. Daring greatly, Brené Brown argues that learning to set boundaries is an important aspect of vulnerability and self-care. Setting boundaries involves defining what is and isn't acceptable in our relationships and interactions with others. It involves saying no when we need to, and being clear about our own needs and values. Brown suggests that setting boundaries is essential for practicing vulnerability and building authentic relationships. When we set clear boundaries with others, we are better able to communicate our needs and expectations, and we are less likely to feel resentful or taken advantage of. Furthermore, Brown argues that setting boundaries is an important aspect of self-care. By setting boundaries, we are able to prioritize our own well-being and avoid overextending ourselves or taking on responsibilities that are not ours. This can help us to manage stress, maintain healthy relationships, and avoid burnout. However, Brown notes that setting boundaries can be challenging, especially for those who struggle with people-pleasing or have a history of unhealthy relationships. It may require us to confront our own fears of rejection or disapproval, and to communicate in a clear and assertive way. Overall, Brown encourages us to learn to set boundaries as a key aspect of vulnerability in self-care. By doing so, we can build healthier and more authentic relationships, prioritize our own well-being, and live more wholeheartedly and authentically. 10. Shame and vulnerability are often closely linked to trauma and must be approached with care and compassion. Daring greatly, Brené Brown acknowledges that shame and vulnerability can be closely linked to trauma and that approaching these experiences with care and compassion is essential. Trauma can be defined as any experience that overwhelms our ability to cope, leaving us feeling helpless, frightened, or out of control. Traumatic experiences can trigger feelings of shame, guilt, and vulnerability, and can make it difficult to trust others or feel safe in relationships. According to Brown, approaching shame and vulnerability in the context of trauma requires a high degree of sensitivity and compassion. This may involve working with a therapist or other trained professional who can provide a safe and supportive environment for exploring these experiences. Brown suggests that approaching shame and vulnerability in the context of trauma may also require us to cultivate self-compassion and self-care. This may involve taking time for self-reflection and self-care, engaging in activities that bring us joy and meaning, and developing practices of mindfulness and self-compassion. Overall, Brown emphasizes that approaching shame and vulnerability in the context of trauma requires care, compassion, and a willingness to engage in the difficult and often painful work of healing. By doing so, we can begin to build resilience and reclaim our sense of worthiness and belonging. 11. Practicing vulnerability can be uncomfortable and even painful, but the rewards are worth it. Daring Greatly, Brené Brown acknowledges that practicing vulnerability can be uncomfortable and even painful, but suggests that the rewards are worth it. Opening ourselves up to vulnerability can be challenging because it requires us to take risks and expose ourselves to the possibility of rejection, failure, or disappointment. It can also involve confronting feelings of shame, fear, and self-doubt. However, Brown argues that the rewards of practicing vulnerability are significant. When we are willing to be vulnerable, we are better able to connect with others in meaningful and authentic ways. Build stronger relationships, and experience greater joy, love, and belonging. Furthermore, Brown suggests that practicing vulnerability can help us to grow and develop as individuals. It can lead to greater creativity, innovation, and success in our personal and professional lives, as well as help us to develop a deeper sense of purpose and meaning. Of course, practicing vulnerability is not always easy, and there may be times when we feel overwhelmed, exposed, or even hurt. Brown acknowledges that vulnerability requires courage and resilience. It is important to approach it with self-compassion and care. Overall, while practicing vulnerability may be uncomfortable or even painful at times, Brown suggests that the rewards are worth it. By opening ourselves up to vulnerability, we can build stronger relationships, experience greater joy and belonging, and grow and develop as individuals. 12. The fear of being vulnerable can lead to a scarcity mindset, where we believe there is never enough of anything. Daring Greatly, Brené Brown discusses how the fear of vulnerability can lead to a scarcity mindset, which is a belief that there is never enough of anything. According to Brown, when we are afraid to be vulnerable, we may develop a belief that we are not enough. Or that we don't have enough of something, such as love, success, or happiness. This can lead us to adopt a mindset of scarcity, where we feel like we are constantly lacking and that there will never be enough to go around. The scarcity mindset can be incredibly limiting, as it can cause us to focus on what we don't have rather than what we do. It can also lead to feelings of envy, competition, and comparison, as we may feel like we are in competition with others for limited resources. In contrast, Brown suggests that embracing vulnerability can help us to develop an abundance mindset, where we believe that there is enough of what we need to go around. This can lead to feelings of gratitude, generosity, and joy, as we focus on what we have rather than what we don't. Overall, the fear of being vulnerable can lead to a scarcity mindset, which can be limiting and damaging. By embracing vulnerability and developing an abundance mindset, we can experience greater joy, gratitude, and connection with others. 13. Shame can be a barrier to authentic leadership, and vulnerable leaders can be more effective. Daring Greatly, Brené Brown suggests that shame can be a barrier to authentic leadership, and that vulnerable leaders can be more effective. According to Brown, shame can prevent leaders from being authentic and vulnerable with their team members. This can lead to a lack of trust and a breakdown in communication, as team members may feel like their leaders are not being honest or transparent with them. In contrast, Brown suggests that vulnerable leaders can be more effective because they are willing to be honest and transparent with their team members. When leaders are willing to share their own vulnerabilities and mistakes, it can create a sense of trust and connection with their team members, which can lead to better communication, collaboration, and performance. Furthermore, Brown argues that vulnerable leaders are better able to navigate uncertainty and change, as they are willing to take risks and try new things. This can lead to greater innovation and growth for both the leader and the organization. Overall, while shame can be a barrier to authentic leadership, vulnerable leaders can be more effective because they are willing to be honest, transparent, and willing to take risks. By embracing vulnerability, leaders can build stronger relationships with their team members, foster greater innovation and growth, and create a more positive and inclusive workplace culture. 14. Shame can also impact our ability to parent effectively, and practicing vulnerability can improve our relationships with our children. Daring Greatly, Brené Brown discusses how shame can impact our ability to parent effectively, and how practicing vulnerability can improve our relationships with our children. According to Brown, shame can lead to feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt, which can affect how we parent our children. When we are afraid to be vulnerable and admit our mistakes, we may feel like we have to be perfect parents, which can be an unrealistic and unattainable standard. This can lead to feelings of shame and guilt when we inevitably make mistakes or fall short of our own expectations. In contrast, Brown suggests that practicing vulnerability and embracing imperfection can actually improve our relationships with our children. When we are willing to be honest and transparent with our children, it can create a sense of trust and connection, which can lead to better communication and understanding. Furthermore, Brown argues that when we are willing to be vulnerable with our children, it can help them to develop their own sense of resilience and self-acceptance. By modeling vulnerability and self-compassion, we can help our children to feel more comfortable with their own imperfections and mistakes. Overall, shame can impact our ability to parent effectively, but practicing vulnerability and embracing imperfection can improve our relationships with our children and help them to develop their own sense of resilience and self-acceptance. By being willing to be vulnerable and honest with our children, we can create a more positive and supportive family dynamic. 15. The practice of gratitude and joy can help us cultivate a mindset of abundance and resilience in the face of shame and vulnerability. Daring greatly, Brené Brown suggests that the practice of gratitude and joy can help us cultivate a mindset of abundance and resilience in the face of shame and vulnerability. According to Brown, shame and vulnerability can often lead to feelings of scarcity, where we feel like there is never enough of anything, not enough love, not enough success, not enough happiness. This scarcity mindset can be damaging, as it can lead to feelings of fear, anxiety, and self-doubt. In contrast, Brown suggests that cultivating a mindset of abundance can help us to overcome shame and vulnerability. By practicing gratitude and joy, we can focus on what we have rather than what we lack, and develop a sense of resilience and gratitude even in the face of challenges. Furthermore, Brown argues that cultivating gratitude and joy can actually help us to become more vulnerable and open to connection with others. When we are able to appreciate the good in our lives, we may feel more comfortable sharing our vulnerabilities and connecting with others on a deeper level. Overall, by practicing gratitude and joy, we can cultivate a mindset of abundance and resilience that can help us to overcome shame and vulnerability, and lead to greater happiness, fulfillment, and connection with others. Please hit the subscribe button for the support of our channel and share our videos for more new upcoming content. We are very happy to create new ideas and review for everyone. God bless and happy listening.